Hello everybody. If you watched the last episode of Lost Locations, you may recall that I created a poll so that you, the viewers, could decide the next featured location. Well, after about a week of voting, Hell on Earth had a substantial lead, so it is the subject of today's video. Thank you to everyone who participated in the poll. It was a fun experiment, and it's something I may do for future episodes. I was more than happy with the participation that we got in that poll. And while Hell on Earth had a sizable lead in the poll, there was quite a bit of interest in Johnny A as well. So rest assured, Johnny A fans, the plan is to make a Lost Locations video on that location sooner than later. That being said, I hope you enjoy today's episode. In the world of MineZ, it is not uncommon for dungeons to receive updates. These can range from minor tweaks, like Invalia Mines have received over the years, to major revamps like the completely reimagined Warped Ruins that was released in 2022. However, there are only a handful of dungeons that have been completely removed from the MineZ map over the years. One of those dungeons is Hell on Earth. Hell on Earth was a mini-dungeon located west of Floating Islands where Mining Town currently sits. The dungeon consisted simply of a few wooden plank walkways with spawners, a small parkour section, and an open room with a sacrifice component. Although the dungeon was brief, earning it the mini-dungeon designation, the build itself was anything but, as it was set in a cave that created a massive opening in the northern Stone Mountains. While the dungeon was quite easy, a few factors led to it being relatively unpopular during its time on the map. Namely, the sacrifice requirement, and the fact that the dungeon dropped what was at the time a very underwhelming legendary, the Knight's Shadow. As a result, Hell on Earth was only on the map for about 2 years. Today, we will explore the origins of this dungeon, its removal, and why interest in it persists years later. This is MineZ, Lost Locations. As with many locations that were added to MineZ in 2012 and 2013, the history of Hell on Earth begins before it was even added into the MineZ map. This is because it was first sent in as a build submission on the MineZ subreddit. On October 12, 2012, Coley posted a build submission for Hell on Earth, along with an album of screenshots and a schematic of the build. A link to this Reddit page and the album and the schematic will be posted in the description of this video. The footage used in this video was created with the schematic that was posted at the time, as it is nearly identical to the final product that was added to the MineZ map. Although Hell on Earth was only a submission, Coley actually contributed to the MineZ map in several other ways. Coley also built and submitted the Coal Castle in the southeast portion of the map, and also went on to become a Shoppo builder, working on the earliest iterations of Invalia Mines, among other projects. There was a sizable gap in time between the build submission of Hell on Earth and its placement on the map, as the location did not open until May 13th of 2013. Hell on Earth itself has many interesting features, both in terms of its build arrangement and as a dungeon. The exterior of the dungeon consisted of several bone-like constructions that loosely resembled the elephant graveyard from the Lion King movie. Additionally, outside of the dungeon, there was a tower that may look a little familiar. The tower has the same design and construction as the spires of Coal Castle, another one of Coley's iconic builds on the MineZ map. This kind of existed as a cool callback from one location to the other. Inside the dungeon, the first level had little to it, consisting mostly of wooden walkways. However, in the corner of this level there was a small building named Chapel of the Lost Knight, which had one Civ hospital chest, supplying potions to players that may have been attempting the dungeon. From there, some vines led players down into the depths of the dungeon. The next level had also very little to it, consisting of wooden platforms leading to the next section. However, this area also had several small alcoves, each providing either a military rare or a military epic chest. That being said, these would often go unlooted as zombie and pigman spawners prevented players from lingering in this area for too long. The next part of the dungeon was a small parkour section consisting of very easy jumps over a stream of lava. Although this section was not difficult, the stream of lava below meant failure would typically result in death, especially since this dungeon existed in a time before fire resistance potions. Finally, there was the sacrifice room, a large open cave section with a lava pit and a piston doorway leading into the loot room. In this section, one player would have to jump into the lava pit, activating a pressure plate at the bottom. This would open the loot room, allowing a second player to obtain the Knight's Shadow and exit the dungeon. The remaining player was trapped in the lava pit, serving as a player sacrifice. Beyond that, there is not much else to this dungeon. However, in this last room, there was also a hidden alcove that you could get to by swimming through lava in one of the holes in the room. Doing so would lead you to a water pool, a military chest, and a ladder leading back to the main room. Once Hell on Earth was added to the map, it did not receive many changes. However, on May 21st of 2013, about a week after its release, it was discovered that a giant spawn was added at the top of the terrain surrounding the location. This was also the date that I was able to find the earliest reference to this, as Nim's Quest posted a photo on Reddit of them self-posing with the giant in the background. It is not clear if this was added with the location and discovered later, or if someone went in and added it following the release of the location. Either way, this was not an ideal place to fight giants, as a giant kick could easily launch players from the top of the terrain down to the bottom. This would likely result in the death of the player, especially considering giant kicks did significantly more damage than they do now. Combining that with fall damage from falling off the terrain would likely be lethal. After the giant spawn, Hell on Earth went largely untouched for 2 years until it was removed and replaced with Mining Town as part of Magic House Secret Update on August 15, 2015. That brings us to the present. Although Hell on Earth has been removed from the game for over 7 years now, the legend of this location has never really gone away. Part of this is likely fueled by speculation that a dungeon would return to the location in some capacity. Those who have visited the mining town may know that it contains an underground tunnel system, which many have speculated could become part of a dungeon one day. In fact, at one point, Anscar, a former builder for Shopbo, had expressed interest in making a dungeon using that space. Anscar had also built several dungeons around that same time, including Mount Theorem, flooded tunnels, and the earliest iteration of Aeternal's Crypt. There's also a small unnamed area northeast of Mining Town that looks like it could very well be a dungeon exit. This area can be seen on the MineZ map and can even be visited in-game, fueling further speculation that a dungeon, at least at some point, was meant to exist in this place. Interest was further fueled by the April Fool's 2018 update, where several defunct MineZ locations, including Hell on Earth, were briefly added back to the game. This allowed a new generation of players to try the dungeon for themselves for the first time, and also allowed older players to reminisce on what was a pretty special location for a couple years. The speculation surrounding this area and a potential dungeon has never truly died away, so it is possible that there are other tidbits to this story. It is also possible that the story is incomplete, and one day we may see a dungeon where Hell on Earth once stood. However, as of now, that has not happened, and as things stand right now, Hell on Earth merely exists as a memory, and as a lost location. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. Out of all the locations that I've done on Lost Locations so far, this one definitely has the most sentimental value to me, so I was very excited to see that it won the poll, and it was a lot of fun making this video, and going back down memory lane at what was one of my very first dungeons, playing MineZ. I appreciate that you all allowed me to share this with you, and I appreciate all the support this series has received so far. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I do have plans to make a Journey A Lost Locations as well, so for those of you who voted for that location in the poll, rest assured, you've been heard, and it will hopefully happen sooner than later. If you aren't already, consider subscribing so that you know exactly when that comes out. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.